The introduction to a comic or TV series is one of the most important parts of hooking an audience. If you don't get them from the beginning, they won't stay till the end. I believe that Saga, published by Image Comics, has one of the best introductions in comics. And today I'm going to tell you how they execute such an amazing introduction. Let's go! Saga is a sci-fi fantasy book, and what I've noticed about a lot of these larger world books like fantasy books and sci-fi books, both in indie and mainstream, is that they don't focus on characters. They focus on world building before anything. And I'm sorry, if I don't care about the characters that I'm focusing on within that world, then I won't care about the world itself. So the first thing you have to focus on in an introduction especially is characterization. And Saga executes this perfectly. One of the most impressive things about the first issue of Saga is how quickly he establishes his characters. We learn about Alana and Marco's relationship, their motivators and their personalities within the first few pages. Like, right off the bat, this dude's tearing off their baby's umbilical cord with his teeth because he's just a feral bastard. The writer Brian Vaughan does this through a combination of dialogue, exposition, and action. For example, in the first scene, Alana and Marco are discussing their plan to escape from the war, and this dialogue reveals their love for each other and their determination to survive, and also it shows off their sense of humor. So it shows three different characteristics of the characters within the scene immediately, right off the bat, and it shows the stakes of the scene as well. A little later on, they are attacked by a group of bounty hunters, and Marco uses himself as a body shield to protect Alana from their gunshots. Now, this shows what Marco's willing to do to protect his family versus telling you, because you always want to show and not tell. This is how you create amazing characterization. You see, your characters are put in situations where their beliefs and their will is actually tested. That's what you need to do. You need to put them in these situations. You can't just have them talking about things all the time. There's a time and place for that, but most of the time, you want to show what they can do through action and what they would do in situations through action, especially in comics where you have a limited amount of pages. With TV, I think you can get away with a little bit more, but with comics, you have to go. You don't have as much space to work with. Speaking of pacing, issue number 1 of Saga is perfectly paced as well. It starts with action, the middle is sort of world building, and the ending sets up the new conflict that'll happen in the next issue, which you want to do a lot with TV or comics because you want to end it where people want to watch the next episode or read the next issue. That's how you want to end almost every single issue of comics or every single episode of TV. But how can you ensure that pacing is good in your story? Well, I think you do this through structure. Now, some consider structure too formulaic. I totally disagree. I think if you are honestly a good storyteller, you will naturally adhere to structure most of the time in some way or another. There's many different types of structures, my favorite being Dan Harmon's story circle. Now, the reason this is my favorite is because it encompasses a lot of different parts of storytelling, and it's almost like a checklist, making sure you have the essential bits of your story checked off. Now, usually with any sort of series, you don't want to complete the full circle right away because then the series would be over. Usually, it establishes up to number 4 of the story circle, which is where they adapt to the situation, and they just continue to adapt throughout the whole series. But you can do mini story circles for each episode. So for example, let's talk about this issue specifically, issue number 1 of Saga. Let's see how it applies to the story circle. Beat number 1, a character's in a zone of comfort. Alana and Marco are living together on the planet Wreath, which is their zone of comfort or discomfort, how you want to view it, because despite being from opposing sides of the galactic war, they are in love and they have a newborn child, Hazel. Beat 2, but they want something. Alana and Marco want to escape the war and protect their daughter. Beat 3, they go into an unfamiliar situation. Alana and Marco leave Wreath to flee to the planet Cleve, where they are hunted by bounty hunters from both sides of the war. Beat 4, now they have to adapt. Alana and Marco are constantly struggling to stay one step ahead of the bounty hunters, and they have to adapt to their new environments and new challenges. Beat 5, they get what they want when they head to the rocket ship area, but guess what? They pay a price for it in beat 6 when they realize the war is there too. So, they get what they wanted, but they pay a price for it. This is very important if you want to make interesting stories. If the character never pays for anything, then it won't be interesting. Beat 7, returning to a familiar situation. The situation is they're trying to escape the war. And beat 8, having changed, because now they have a slightly more cynical view. However, they are determined to protect their daughter and give her a better future. So I hope that gives you a good idea of how the story circle can be used to help pace your story. If you don't want to use it, that's up to you, but I'm just saying, might help you out a bit. Next is something used commonly in manga and comics, but not so much so TV, and that is narration. It is used in TV and film, but not as much, and it's really hard to get right in film and TV. But if you want to go for it, go for it. This is how you do it, right? In this comic, the story is not narrated by Marco or Alana, actually. It's narrated by Hazel, their daughter. So it's sort of her narrating from the future, talking about the past, telling the story with the voice of a child, so it gives a sense of innocence in this torn apart world. Really cool vibe. I love the way they have the text wrap around the planets and all of that stuff. I love the way they deliver this narration and exposition through Hazel. It's perfect. She describes the world, attacks us with exposition, and connects us to the story on a deeper level. And the thing about exposition is, although I know fantasy writers and stuff like that love to overindulge us in it, and I know people love getting the lore of these planets and worlds, if you're doing a series, it's going to come over time anyway. So introduce it gradually. That's what this book does. It introduces technology, it introduces new characters, new races, new species, but it doesn't overdo it, okay? It doesn't flood you with so much information where you just don't know what's going on. They show us everything that is absolutely necessary to the story. They show us the war and the concept, and that's it. In my opinion, you're better off focusing on one concept versus 50 different concepts and jam-packing them together. If there's one thing I want you to take away from this video, it's that characterization matters most, and if you are doing exposition, then you better attack with it. If you want to check out more crazy fantasy worlds or just learn more about writing, click the link in the description below to join the mailing list, and you'll get exclusive insights on My Comic Book Grandpa. The book's about an old thief going up against the Greek gods and building an empire to overthrow them. So it's a pretty badass story. I think you'll love it. Make sure you like the video, make sure you subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.